If most businesses fail within the first 5 years, most businesses or most business owners must be doing the same thing, and the same thing must be the wrong thing. I believe people make the same bad decisions because they're getting the same bad information. Most of us come from households where people have jobs where they have to be employed by someone else. So when people try and start a business, it's like this mythical, magical thing that we don't understand. They've made business seem to be something so difficult to do, and we go out and do the very same things that everybody else is doing, and we, without ever even thinking about what it is that we need to do. We have to ask ourselves, what is business? I wasn't that great in math, but I do remember this one thing when we did fractions. It was called finding the least common denominator. And what the least common denominator was like making this thing down to the simplest thing that can be divided, that it can be divided by. So how can we simplify business? Well, just thinking about the definition of business, and I know there are more complex ways to do business. There are complicated procedures that can be added to business, but we want to talk about the smallest thing that make up business. So let's give you a very, very small, simple, where everybody can understand definition of business. All business is buying and selling. That's business. And I had to understand this before I could ever try and do anything when it comes to business. People make investing hard. When somebody say you got to invest your money, we think about stocks and bonds and real estate and things that we don't have access to. A lot of us, it depends on where you're starting from, you don't have access to it. So we think it's something very difficult. Now, business and investing can be complicated. It can be complex. But again, you won't ever start if you start with the most complex part of a thing. So if you started with a basic understanding of investing, which I'm going to give you a basic definition right now. The basic definition of investing is using your money to make money. If you can buy a candy bar for $1 and you can sell it for $1.50, you just invested your money. May not be a passive investment. It may not be a sophisticated investment, but that is the nature of investing. The nature of business is buying and selling. If you are in business, you should make sure you are the seller more than you are the buyer if you want to stay in business. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, a house had been broken into. Now, I didn't know it was broken into because we had this privacy fence around the backyard. And I don't like privacy fence even to this day because of that. Because if it's private for me, it's private for a thief. Now, we didn't notice that our house had been broken into until the next morning. And I was so upset. I was angry. And I said, know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get me a dog. I'm going to get me a killer dog, a dog that if anybody come in my yard, that dog is going to mess him up. So I went out and bought a puppy. I knew the dog would make a great watchdog, a great guard dog. But you know something? For the first year or so, I had to take care of that dog. I had to feed him and train him and make sure he was healthy, because that dog, as a puppy, would not be able to take care or guard my yard. So that's why a lot of people go out of business. They get a business, start a business, and that business is just a puppy. And they want that puppy to guard their yard or to provide for them. What most of us want is a sure thing. We want a job, a paycheck. So when you start a business, if you're starting from the ground up and from scratch, you cannot go out and just pay yourself a salary every time. In reality, you shouldn't need anything from a baby off the ground business. You should do everything you can to try and make sure that business can survive. Because if you can keep that dog or that puppy healthy until it matures, it will be able to guard the yard. But if you put a puppy out in the yard and then you get an intruder or a thief, a robber to come in and want to break into your home. He can steal the dog. He can kill the dog. He can just walk right past the dog, and the dog can't do anything about it. I had a guy wanted to do some business or something, so he told me he got a business license. He went and got a LLC. He went and got a website. He want a logo. Then some people, depend on your business you in, people will go out and get a office building. They need office furniture, and they need telephones and phone numbers and all other things that go along with what they consider to be business. Then they open their doors to their business, and they go in and they sit in their empty business, and now they have to try and figure out how to get customers. So they think of this great idea: I'll spend money on advertising. And they spending money on advertisement. And before long, they're out of money. They can't pay their bills at home. They can't pay the bills that they've created for this business. They can't pay these loans back. People go out and get business loan, all that before they get started. Now, some businesses, you might have to do all of that. Depends on what that business is. But I'm talking about a lot of simple business people get into. They try and have just basic things. You know, they may want to sell T-shirts, and people kind of go out and do all this stuff here and don't know anything about the business itself. But here's the problem with that. Instead of them being the seller in most of the transactions, they've only been the buyer. They bought all that stuff: websites, logos, loans, rents, equipment, everything. They haven't sold anything. And the first time they can make $1, they're not starting from zero. They're starting in the negative. So what people do wrong, I think, and I believe, is that when they look at business, they look at it as something grander or greater than the basic concept. Keep the basic concept of business in mind. When you're in business or you try to start a business, you want to try and be the seller more than you are the buyer. Now, we are all consumers, but a business guy is a producer. So you want to make sure that you're not a consumer more than you are a producer. And I believe that's why most people's businesses fail, or when they try to start a business or begin a business, they fail, is because they try and make their puppy guard the yard. That's what that concept means by, so much like respect the process. Respect the process. Most people think the process means that we're just going to do things and just wait it out and tough it out, and things are just going to get better. No, the process is more like we will get the dog, we will get a puppy. I don't need anything from this puppy until this puppy is trained, taken care of, raised, and strong enough to guard the yard. To your business, if you're going to start a business from the ground up, if you don't have a lot of cash, you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of resources, you want to try and not need much or anything from that business, and try to get that business strong enough to guard your yard, to take care of what you need to take care of. That's basic, and that's very simple to me. Now, I know there are more complex ways, and some of you may have some greater ideas, but I believe before we try to go to complicated or complex things, we should get the basics first. So when you get ready to start a kind of business, or if you're in business, always try to remember you want to be the seller more than you are the buyer. And remember, if you got a puppy, you raise that puppy. You take care of that puppy until he's able to guard the yard. I'm Marcus V. Brown. I'll see you next time.